Hello everybody, I'm the 40k Renegade, and I'm here to make the Orks great again. We're going to start by building the biggest warband ever, bigger than the biggest ever warband. It's going to be absolutely huge, bigger than anything for China's ever built, and we're going to make the Empire pay for it. And just so you know, it's absolutely fake news that my war boss, Knob, disappeared and quit on me. He's actually gone home to see his mother, who is sicker than the sickliest person ever. Now, we're going to talk about making the Orks absolutely hugely bigly great again. We're going to get started now by having a good rant about the 7th edition Ork Codex, which is worse than the worst book ever, and everybody knows it. I've got 1,000 witnesses to prove it, and everybody agrees with me all over the world. In fact, you can ask anybody, providing it's somebody I approve of, and they'll tell you, yes, I'm right, they're wrong. Now, let's get on with it.
Hello everybody, today we're going to have a bit of a rant about the Orks. Now, as you would have heard from my introduction to this channel, that I'm an old Rogue Trader player. Everything between Rogue Trader and the 7th edition, complete mystery to me. I would just stop playing after Rogue Trader when they started watering things down. I walked away. Come back with 7th edition, lots of improvements. However, one of the things it isn't improved at all is the 104 page Ork Codex. Now, when you flip through the Ork Codex, it's all colourful, lots of pretty pictures and stats and stuff, and it looks like a normal codex until you actually remember what the Orks were supposed to be like. Now, when you hear people talking about the Orks, oh, they're fun, everybody likes Orks, they're not talking about 7th edition Orks. They're talking about previous edition Orks, is when they were fun, when Orks were mental, when you had fun just playing them and playing against them. Now they're a one-trick pony. All they do is charge. If you just spent all your points on one war boss, cheap war boss, then loads of Ork boys mobs, you'd win against every race, because you'd just be able to outnumber them with boys. They couldn't kill you fast enough, and once you got in combat, you'd wipe them out. And that's all they do. Everything else in the book is there to support that act. This is why the killer can wall works, because anything that protects your boys whilst they close the gap is a good idea. Because all you're going to do is get one squad of unupgraded Orks into combat with anything, and they'll tear that unit apart. Now, because of that one fact, nearly all the things in this book, in the Ork Codex, that isn't directly a boys mob, pretty much becomes useless. In fact, when you look at all of the rules in these books, like the Mad Doc Groznik, Pain Boys and stuff like that, they've changed the name like Doc Tools. That's basically Feel No Pain. They could have just put Feel No Pain in there, saved you looking it up on 2 books, but no, they put Doc Tools down there. Now, because they got Doc Tools, they think it makes it sound orky. But you can change the name of Feel No Pain to Doc Tools, but that doesn't make it orky. That makes it a pain to look up in 2 manuals, right? Cyborg Body, Feel No Pain. Now, why has this Mad Doc Groznik got Feel No Pain and Doc Tools when they're both the same thing, Cyborg Body and Doc Tools? To quote the errata, because he's a Mad Doc Groznik, mad being the key word, that's why he's got 2 Feel No Pains things. Now, that's obviously nonsense, because they obviously missed that one. However, right, the point being here is, Feel No Pain isn't orky. You could call it Cyborg Body if you want. You could call it Doc Tools if you want. That is not orky. Now, back in the day, when you had Rogue Trader, you had 2 books out, right, each with rules for different clans, right? And then you had War Ork, which was basically all background fluff. Between them, there must have been close to 500 pages worth of Ork stuff in them, right? What you've got here is 104 pages. That replaces 504. Right? That means 4/5 of what the Orks were about, 4/5 of the things that made Orks fun have now completely gone, wiped out, taken away, left with basically Feel No Pain being given different names. Now, if we actually look, here we go. Fair enough, that's Orky, right? Furious Charge, not Orky.
It's not Orky, no.
Independent character mob rules, yeah, that's a bit Orky. So basically, you've got here we go, mob rules, the two Orkies things in the book. Everything else is just a renamed 40k rule, special rule, basically. They don't really give you the feeling of Orks or anything. Even the war boss here, Slugger Chopper, you know, standard piece of kit. You know, you'd expect him to get something different, like big hammer or something. You know, you can hit people with. Back in the day, you had the big mob, for instance. That was the biggest boys mob in your army. Was the big mob, and he was loyal to the war boss, and they helped the war boss keep everybody else in line. Not anymore. Completely gone. Mad boys, completely gone. Storm boys used to be lined up with the Goths and used to like charging up and down and polishing the boots. Not anymore, that's gone as well. It's now blood axes and other things. Shock attack gun. Now, that was a very Orky thing. You basically fired snotlings through the warp at the enemy and they came out white as a sheet, kicking and screaming and clawing. Now, though, the shock attack gun has been nerfed to the point where when you look at the rules for it, you really don't want to buy it, let alone use it. It's kind of like, let me just see if I can find it for you. Right, shock attack gun. Every time you roll, you basically roll a double. Well, you first of all, right, so to fire shock attack gun, you roll 2d6 to determine its strength. After placing the template, but before rolling for scatter, says, right, so if it's after 11, or it says 11 or a double is rolled, right, I think that's a 1-1 to be honest. It says a double is rolled for the gun strength, consult the chart below. Now, the gun strength is, 2d6, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 options on 2d6, which are basically bad for you, right? So 7 chances on 2d6 to get precisely the wrong result. Now, it'd either go boom, no shot is fired, the mech is removed as a casualty, oops, your opponent may choose the target, gar, resolve the shot at the nearest unit to the target, says that is not locked in combat, friend or foe, splosh, resolve the attack upon the target but use a smaller blast marker, zoink, no shots are fired, immediately place the mech in base contact with the closest model, says our point of the target unit, zap, only the model under the template's hole is hit at a strength 10. Kaboom, resolve this shot, the shock attack gun uses the vortex special rule. So basically, the orkiest weapon in the Ork army is absolutely useless. It's going to kill itself and everybody around it. It's no good. Now, I'm not just going to rant about this. I'm going to give you some examples of what is Orky. Imagine that shock attack gun, for example. Imagine if you're on a scroll of a scatter, the only rule you had to worry about was the double 1. Now imagine if you got a double 1. It wasn't the snotlings that got teleported through the warp at the enemy, but the nearest squad, friend or foe, suddenly got charged into combat immediately and came out the other side, kicking, screaming and fighting just like the snotlings. And for one turn before they recovered, they had to fight close combat with whatever the target unit was. Imagine that. Now imagine the nearest unit could be any unit on the table. Didn't even have to be Orks. It could be a charging assault squad suddenly teleported across the board to attack its own side. Now that is Orky. Now I was talking on the 40k group on Facebook, and we were talking about this. There's lots of great ideas on there. Somebody shared with me, I think it's I can't remember the name of the thing. It was basically alternative Ork rules, but the guy who wrote it made the same mistake this book makes. It links his updates too much to the 40k rulebook, and it's just not Orky. It really isn't Orky. It might as well be an Imperial army. Now, if you imagine Orks, right? Now, on say a truck, an Ork truck, you want Orks for an Ork, it rules for an Ork truck. How about this? It has 2 speeds, stop and go. And in order to disembark safely, a unit needs the jump for it special rule, right? Unless the vehicle is stopped. That means when the Ork jumps off of the thing, he jumps off while the thing's moving at any speed. That is Orky. You could add 3 inches to the charge range, you know? So they actually move with an extra 3 inches, or make a minimum move of 3 inches after they disembark. So they can't just disembark, they've got to move 3 inches at least before they stop. That is Orky. You see? Another thing we talked about, right, is knobs and Ork boys. I mean, quite a few people that came up with their own solutions to this. But Orks get, the bigger they are, meaner they are, the more powerful they get. And in recent books like, I can't remember what they call it now, something Rising, one of the Orks was so big, and the Ork War was so big, that they actually had access to advanced technologies. And the suggestion was, the bigger the warband, the more advanced the Orks get. Now also, we already know that the bigger the Orks get, you know, the more powerful they are. So why don't we start an Ork boy with a strength 3, 3 BS, 3 WS, toughness of 3, as your baseline young Ork who isn't really that tough. There's your boys right there, right, your common ones. Next lot up are your more experienced Orks. You know, they're a WS of 4, still a BS of 3, because they're still not going to be good shots. Right, maybe toughness of 3 or a 4. Right, probably 4, with a strength 3 or a 4. Next group of Orks, one up from them. It'd be WS of 4, BS of 3, strength 4, toughness 4. Right, this would match the fluff. Every step of the way the Orks would get a little bit tougher. Initiative would probably stay the same. Leadership would probably stay the same. However, all the bits that the Orks tend to have favour, like bashing things, close combat, right, shooting, because they're supposed to like big guns and things that go bang bang, lots of daka, so you'd expect they'd be able to hit something, which they currently can't do, right, can be improved the older an Ork gets. Also, the Orks would theoretically get bigger, you know, the more experience they have. Although with the current models, you couldn't really represent that. But you could do it as a squad. It'd be easy enough to do on paper. It says, but you'd get a situation where the Orks basically gained experience the older they got. You could paint them up to reflect that status. So the older they got, the more jangly teeth they had on them, the more fancy bits they had. Maybe if they were bad ones, they'd have a few more gold teeth, that kind of thing. Right? So you could represent it. It'd look right. It'd look Orky. Now, if you imagine a situation where one of the bigger Orks, it doesn't have to be a knob, just an Ork bigger than another Ork, right, was stood next to one other Ork when he fired his weapon, and that weapon hit something and killed something, and this bigger Ork saw it and decided he wanted a go. You could have another rule, you know, gives a go, call it, right? So an Ork says, gives a go, or gives it here. And the Ork takes his other Ork's weapon and has a bit of a shoot with it. He can fire somebody else's weapon that he's seen used and seen hit, thinking it might work well for him. Just give the other Ork a bash in the head, take his weapon off him, give him a fire. If he likes it, he keeps it. If he doesn't, he gives it back. That kind of thing. Now, if the Ork then rolls to hit and gets a 6, he keeps the weapon. The other Ork loses it. This new Ork gets to keep the weapon and gets to use it for the rest of the game. That is Orky. That is what Orks do. That's how you make a Codex feel Orky. You don't make it feel Orky by giving him starboard legs and saying he's got feel no pain. That's just an Imperial rule. Given a different name, it's still an Imperial rule. Simple. Now, if you went around basically thinking of all the mental stuff that Orks would do, and then you apply that to the game generally, you'd have Mad Boys back in a heartbeat. Because they're as mental as they get. I mean, admittedly, the original Mad Boy rules were a bit weird. But if you think of Orks and how they are, You could say, okay, roll a dice, right? It'd be like mob rules, or instead of the bad boys getting hurt, everybody else would. You'd roll your dice, right? See what they did that turn. Now, they could sit down, like they did in the original rules, and discuss life, the universe, and everything. More likely, they'd be discussing last night's squid curry. Or maybe having a face eater squid contest in the middle of the battlefield, right? In which case you might remove one as a casualty if he fails a toughness test. Or you might just start lobbing squids at the nearest enemy unit, in which case a whole number of available squids could be listed as ammo for the orcs to start firing. They might not even like their own squads, their own boys, and might want to throw something at them. It might not be harmful, it might distract the unit so it can't fire that turn, but it would be what mad boys do, right? Then you could have mad boys that suddenly think, you know, they want to supercharge the nearest wereboy. So they go charge up to the nearest wereboy and immediately start chanting like crazy whether the wereboy likes it or not. The wereboy then makes a roll. If he passes, he automatically gets to use any power he likes next turn, right? Automatically. He can just choose. If he fails, boom, head goes bye-byes. That's Orky. That is what orcs do. That is how you make orcs work. Now, I never did like the breakdown rules for the old orcs. To be honest, they just made everything unreliable, so you couldn't count on any equipment anywhere ever. But orcs should be able to update their stuff. You know, kind of like mech boys and stuff. They should be able to build anything. You should be able to take a rhino or a land raider, orcify it, and field it just like a standard orc vehicle. But it should still cause the same amount of damage that the original caused. It'd just be an orc vehicle now. Now, if you wanted to make orc vehicles feel orky, you could apply a whole set of rules to them. You know, like for instance, right, all orc vehicles go an extra 3 inches faster per turn because they're orcs, especially if they're red ones, right? All orc weapons are -1 strength because the orcs fiddle about and never quite get it right again, right? Or you could say, right, you can have a stronger weapon for the orc, but if you do, it might blow up on you. Your choice, you will customise the weapon, you choose whether you want it to be super strong or you're going to play it safe and have it weaker. Because that's Orky, that's what orcs do. That's exactly how you play orcs. Right? Instead, right, we've got a series of rather mundane, boring rulebooks that's put together by somebody's secretary, which basically boils down to nothing. It's not orky in the slightest, not even remotely so. And to make matters worse, they've introduced, since the Rogue Trader days, right, what was an epic 40k, well, epic Space Marine idea of knights and stuff like that, which are basically Gorkanauts, I guess, and Morkanauts in this or whatever, or Stompers, should I say. Now, this one, the Orc one, is 770 points. 770 points, and it comes with 3 big shooters, which are basically heavy bolters, a death cannon, a scorcher, a super gatler, 3 rockets and whatever. Now that might sound dangerous, but he's got a BS of 2. He can't hit anything. What is the point? He's going to miss 2/3 of the time. So you're paying all that money and then just missing. Most people who have brought this, they've fielded it on 40k battle reports on YouTube. They've said they're getting rid of it. It's not performing as expected. Surprise, surprise. BS of 2. Orcs like Daka. Why can't they shoot? This is the problem with the orcs, right? They should have a BS of at least 3. Actually, they should have a maximum BS of 3. Should never be higher than that. But they don't. They've got a BS of 2 making them useless. That one trains there makes them a one-trick pony. They're only good for charging and close combat. Now, you've got toughness and wounds. Well, not toughness, strength and toughness. Strength of an orc boy is 3. An orc? Have you seen the muscles on an orc? You showed me the muscles on a space marine. They look like wimps compared to an orc. Why are they a 3 strength? They should be 4 as standard. Now, whether the orc should have a WS of 4, that is questionable. Because to be honest, right, I don't see them being any better in close combat than most other races. They're just stronger. They cause more damage if they hit, but they're a bit slow. So they're a bit like a big troll. If they hit you, it's going to hurt. But you'd probably get half a dozen jabs in before they do that. So the WS should probably be lower. In fact, it probably should be 3 and a 3 as standard for the normal boys. But they should have one hell of a clout if they hit you and be really tough. So they're basically like extra tough, extra strong, slow trolls. That's what they should be like. Now you've got tank busters, burner boys and whatnot, all very good, right? And the boys mobs have various configurations which you could change them for, you know, to basically, like, you can give them all heavy armour, for instance. At one point each, so 10 orc boys could suddenly get, I think it's a 4+ save. You know, fair enough, that's alright. You know, although if you adopted the idea I mentioned earlier about the stages of boys with some weak ones, middle ones or whatever else, you might want to give them to the boys that aren't quite knobs but aren't quite, you know, low end ones either, you know, on account that they're tougher than the rest. Also, these orc characters, you know, like Badrock and Zagstrug and that lot, if you use Zagstrug in a game, it's absolutely crap. It really is bad. It's got nothing really that, you know, makes him worth taking. In my experience, he usually dies long before he gets anywhere near any action. And I've actually got 20 Storm Boys with my army, right, and I field him with them. And to be honest, I've stopped taking him. I mean, he's 65 points of pointlessness. Now, if we actually go to the Big Mech guys, now they're quite a good idea, but that was a whole section in the old days. They had custom gadgets and everything. I mean, you could do all kinds of stuff to vehicles. And the Pain Boys, they were bionic bits up to their eyeballs. I mean, imagine it, right? You take an Orc Boys mob and you give them a load of bionic bits, right? Says you can have a bionic mob full of bionic bits, you know, and the bionic bits could be randomly determined and grouped together in a mob for a speed, so they all have the same bionic bit, so you're not messing about. Might give them +1 toughness, might let them move faster, might make them mental, maybe they're immune to psychic powers, it could be anything. You know, they might even find that whenever somebody fires a psychic power over their heads, some antenna on their head absorbs it and their brain starts to zing or something, you know, their eyes light up and suddenly they can see in the dark, so night games are cancelled out. Could be anything, you know. Bionic bits were fun, they should have kept them. Now, if you look at the weapons as well, you go to the back of the book, it's actually quite pathetic. There's very few weapons in there that are any good against anything like a tank that can be carried, and the ones that can have the Gets Hot special rules, so they're likely to blow up. Gets Hot itself isn't orky. Now, if I was to do a replacement for Gets Hot, I would probably call it Banger. Meaning, if you roll to hit and you've got a certain dice, then basically it's the thing's malfunctioned in some way. And then you'd have a Banger chart, and the Banger chart would list a load of wacky, unusual events that could happen to only an orc, right? Like, for instance, right, the orc drops his weapon, right, starts dancing around because he's singed his fingers, can't shoot for the next turn, right, and loses the weapon for the rest of the game. Or maybe it goes off all right, much bigger explosion than he expected, but at half the range. So whatever he was aiming at was missed, but something exactly halfway in between got hit. That kind of thing, you know. Says so the Gets Hot rule isn't a simple dies, so no saves allowed kind of thing. It's more a case of, okay, something's gone wrong, right? What can we possibly do to make this orky? Let's have a think. If you had a missile launcher, the missiles might just go and disappear off in another direction. Hit something completely random at the other side of the table. It could be anything. Could even hit his own warboss. Maybe it homes back in on the weapon, and the guy's got to take a hit from his own weapon. There's loads and loads of stuff you could do to make something orky. There's no reason at all why an orc book should read like an Imperial Codex, which is what this does. I am an old 40k player from the Rogue Trader days, right? I'm used to orcs playing a certain way. I'm used to orcs being fun. I'm used to orcs making every game funny without any effort whatsoever. It just happens because they're a bit mental. There's nothing like that in this. Nothing at all. This Ork Codex has been stripped down to the point where it's no longer an Ork Codex. It's just a set of generic rules that could apply to anything. And personally, I think that is a really sad indication of the state of the Orks in 40k today. They really do need to get an Ork player to rewrite this book and not the people that have been doing it, because this is just wrong. Anyway, that's me ranting about Orks. We're going to have a rant about something else in the next video, probably the Gathering Storm or something like that. So I'll see you in that one. Bye bye.